Welcome to the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio, the voice of new media. I'm your host, Ian Rakelli. It is a fantastic time to be a sports fan right now. You have the MLB postseason. You have the Los Angeles Dodgers and the New York Yankees in the World Series. I kid. You're going to have the NBA kicking off with the NBA preseason. You have Draymond Green trying to get kicked off the Warriors by punching Jordan Poole in the face. You have college basketball, the rankings, and all. Really, the surprise of who number one when it comes to college basketball, but that's a completely different show we got to talk about. And college football Saturday. I know that there's been a lot of upsets over the last couple of weeks, but so far the top five stayed pretty consistent. Shout out to Ohio State, Michigan, all those teams in the Big Ten. University of Utah, though, unfortunately lost. So the team I support, they are now 2 losses, so they're going to be done. And, of course, you have the NFL and you have the NHL. That's going to be kicking off next week. So the NHL regular season will be kicking off next week, and that's going to be fantastic. And before I introduce my guest for this episode of the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio, I want to give a shout-out to UNLV Rebel Hockey. UNLV Rebel Hockey, they had Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio. We had media credentials for their home opener against University of Utah at the Dollar Loan Center in Henderson, Nevada. So I just want to give a special shout out to UNLV Rebel Hockey. They are a fantastic program. Rob McCollum, Alec Johnson, 2 defensemen on those teams, had a fantastic performance in their win against University of Utah on Friday night at the Dollar Loan Center in Henderson, Nevada. Now, getting that all out of the way, my guest at this time, very knowledgeable, someone who knows what he's talking about, our Arenthous Frazier, the Renaissance man from No Filter Productions. Welcome back to the show. How's it going, my friend?
Oh man, I'm going great. Couldn't be better. Right now we got a lot of exciting things that are going on, especially in between, both of our careers. And it's a really exciting time. We're going to have a lot of content come out for the people, in various topics and from various angles, and pretty much, all facets possible in media, so excited for that. And I must say that to the PR Connection, radio.com, hey, you guys' graphics are looking really good. It's really promising. I love it. Continue.
Well, hey, I definitely will. Sorry about that. I definitely will let Guy Dawson and all the people who are working hard at PR Connections Radio, I'll let them know that you said that.
I appreciate that.
Now, getting into our NFL conversation, we're going to take a quick recap to week 4 before we get into our picks for week 5. So, first off, was there any games from week 4 that really stood out to you? Really any games, Renaissance man, that you look at and go, man, that was an incredible game? Because the thing about last week is that there was a few games that really stood out to me as games that you could really look back and say, man, that was a phenomenal game of football.
Sure. That was a phenomenal game of a football game, or like as far as like really wonky or weird? Because see, week 4 we had a little bit of both. So I want to know, like, in that note from you, which direction can we go in?
Well, what I believe what we can get into is, games that were really the best, like, potential game of the year candidate, that kind of situation. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the Vikings and the Saints, that was a dogfight. That came down to just a couple of plays. It kind of had wasn't the Super Bowl feel, but it was pretty good. Or how about the Bills beating the Ravens?
I will say when it comes to Minnesota versus New Orleans, that was a solid game that only 5 people watched because you had to wake up super early to watch it.
But that's the thing, though. They were playing in London.
Yep, they're playing out there in London, poor old England.
So for them, it was kind of it was a thing, especially for them. And of course we had, I thought the Cardinals and the Panthers was pretty good. Although I will say about that game is it was 26-16, but watching it, it was, and just knowing being around football, the game was a lot closer than the score indicated. It was one of those games. It just came down to a few key plays where stops were needed. And well, sometimes you get the bear, and sometimes the bear gets you. You know how it goes. It's that's just it.
So before the game happened, I asked my guest from the last show, Sharon Mullen, from the Chocolate Writer, Sharon Mullen. I asked her if Buffalo versus Baltimore could potentially be a game of the year candidate, potentially be a preview of the AFC Championship game in about 5 months. But now,
Mm.
since that game did happen, what do you think? Do you think that Buffalo versus Baltimore that could potentially be your 2022
Yeah, we're gonna see
AFC
him again.
Championship game?
Yeah, we're gonna see him again. Now, I don't know if it's going to be in the championship game, but I think we're gonna see him in the playoffs again.
So then, who
We'll
would
see. We'll
be
see
then
this
who would be
matchup.
your championship game then, if you had to predict it?
I like. You know what? I like the Chargers and the Ravens in the AFC. I like the Chargers and the Ravens because I think Justin Aber in Los Angeles is kind of weird because I'm used to saying San Diego. You know, just forgive me for that. It's still, here it is a couple years later, and I'm still trying to get used to the whole vernacular,
Yeah.
of that thing. Anyway, so the thing with Justin Aber is well ahead of his time. I think he's well ahead of schedule. He's got all the right tools, and he's smart. If give it a couple years, I think that Justin Aber will be the last good pocket passer left. The good pass first quarterback, because you don't see a lot of those anymore, especially those quarterbacks that have a little bit of athleticism. And I think he's got the leadership to be able to take this team to the top.
So we are talking about the NFL, recapping Week 4 real quickly before we get into Week 5 here on the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio, the voice of new media. I'm your host, Ian Kelly. We're here with Arenthous Frazier, the Renaissance man from No Filter Productions.
All right.
And, Justin Herbert, Oregon Ducks legend, somebody who I think is really going to be a stalwart in the NFL for the next decade and a half. But I'm going to stick with my prediction I made back in the beginning of 2022 when I made my predictions that Baltimore and Buffalo will meet in the AFC Championship game. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, two of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I didn't say young, by the way. I'm just saying two of the best quarterbacks
Right.
in the NFL right now. And I believe Josh Allen will get the one-up on Lamar Jackson this time, and it will be the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl. After all, I do have them as my 2022 Super Bowl champions here on the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio. So, getting into that, and also I will give a little bit of credit to Green Bay versus New England. Now, it was a sloppy game, but it was an exciting game to watch. So,
Yep.
Bailey Zappi, Aaron Rodgers doing what he did best by underperforming. So, I will say,
Oh.
as a Chicago Bears fan, seeing Aaron
Oh.
Rodgers underperform, that was good to see.
Ouch.
Now,
Well, hey, I'll tell you what, and being a fan whose team is in the NFC North, all right, which they used to call the NFC North, and back in the day, especially when Tampa Bay was still a part of the NFC Central. Anyway, enough about that. Look, Aaron Rodgers going down and just not really, underperforming, as you say. Well, I think it's all a phase. He's really starting to change, and he's trying to be another Tom Brady. And let's face it, we're not gonna have another one of those.
well,
And
hey, never
he's
say never. My grandfather taught me that a long time ago. Never say never.
well, because you said, but I've said never twice. So there, hey, listen. All I'm saying is that there will never be another Tom Brady. Just like I said, there will never be another Barry Sanders. It ain't happened yet. You
So
know,
you have
so
Barry Sanders, is he the greatest running back of all time?
yep. And here's why. And here's why. It's not statistics that I'm looking at this. He was the only NFL player of our time that you could look at anytime you were near any kind of TV, or whether you were near a TV or listening to a game or whatnot. Every time the Detroit Lions offense had the ball and they were in listening or viewing range of any sort, you were waiting to see what Barry Sanders did. He had probably every fan who actually watched on the edge of their seat, every game in, game out. It was just that good. So there has never been. I still have a hard time figuring out who else could really do that.
Well, I mean, I got two for you. I have always had Barry Sanders as the third greatest running back of all time. Number two is Sweetness himself, Mr. Chicago Bear, and that's Walter Payton. The whole entire defense, it would be 8 in the box. They knew exactly where the ball was going, and Walter Payton would just go to the left, go to the right. He would truck somebody over. He would knock somebody down. He'd go to the sidelines, pop right back up, and he would just keep on going. Number two would be Walter Payton. But number one, and a guy that I've made an argument on this show, The Sports Angle, is the greatest football player of all time, and that is Jim Brown. If you do not have Jim Brown, if you do not have the 9 years that he played in the NFL, that was it, 9 years. He pretty much dominated the NFL for 9 years straight. And the stuff he did in not even a full 16-game season, what he did in a 14-game season was incredible. If you imagine if you added two more games, 3 more games to Jim Brown, how many yardage he would have had in his career if he actually would have played a 17-game schedule like we do now. So I say Jim Brown's number one, Walter Payton number two, and then I would have Barry Sanders at 3 and Emmitt Smith at 4. So that essentially would be what I got.
All right, and I guess that's fair. Everybody has their list. Some people have Emmitt Smith at the top of their list just because he's the NFL's all-time leading rusher. So I mean, I get it, but I mean, the most prolific, by far, is Barry Sanders. Just face it. So
getting into week 5 here, I do want to quickly talk about probably the worst game of the week. All right, it hasn't even been Sunday yet, and we're going to talk about the worst game of the week. Because you had a game where there was no touchdowns. You had a game where there was 4 turnovers. You had a game where Russell Wilson and Russell Westbrook look like they have one thing in common, and that's ripping off the team that traded for him. When it comes to the Denver Broncos at Indianapolis Colts game on Amazon Prime on Thursday night, I would have wished that Amazon would have yanked their money back and been like, why are we paying for this snooze fest? If you're Amazon Prime, why are you paying all this money to watch a terrible game between Indianapolis and Denver? You have any comments on it? I mean, they won 12-9. It felt like you were watching a 1940s game.
Or a baseball game. Just a high-scoring baseball game. But, I mean, I suppose that could be possible. What did I think about it? Sloppy. And this is the problem, too. A lot of these players who sign for these max contracts, it just, if for some strange reason, it's just they numbers start declining and everything else. We see it time and time again. And you see another instance with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson out of Denver. Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's too bad. So far, Josh Allen has somewhat fit the bill, but for 280 of them that he got, listen, you got to win a Super Bowl here shortly. I mean, it's great, and not only that, but it's really good. It's building the Buffalo Bills back up in that sort of brand of football, and that's really good. Plus I'm a little partial to Josh Allen. We have the same birthday.
Alrighty, there you go.
So that helps. But That in I see him being good, but this is what we got going on in Denver right now. Whereas Russell Wilson is and the Denver Broncos organization are both probably kicking themselves in the butt. It was and sometimes, okay, so some of the old folks say to me, sometimes you got to learn leave when to leave well enough alone. He should have stayed a couple more years in Seattle, because honestly, that's all he has left anyway. Well, you don't think so?
No, so let me give you a little bit of background information. My family is in Seattle. I actually went up in August and I visited my family in Seattle.
Okay.
I talked to several people who are well beloved Seahawks fans, and they told me that they wanted Russell Wilson traded 3 years ago. They wanted him traded back in 2018, 2019. Why? Because Russell Wilson quit on Seattle. Russell Wilson quit on the Seahawks organization. He wanted to be traded. He wanted to be gone from Seattle. People in Seattle knew that Russell Wilson wanted to no longer be a Seattle Seahawk. He made it no secret. So when he went to Denver, there's a reason why he got booed, and he got booed a lot on that Monday night in week 1 when they went to Seattle. That's the reason why, is because he essentially gave up on the team. He gave up on Pete Carroll. He gave up on the organization and the fans. So I do not blame Russell Wilson for trying to get traded. He was trying to get traded all the way back to 2018, 2019. The problem is that he got traded to Denver, an organization that does not match his chemistry. He got traded to a team that does not match his skill set. This is a guy who needed a certain type of offense. He does not have it in Denver. So,
and he's not gonna have it in Denver.
No, Nathaniel Hackett's he is the definition of not supposed to be a head coach. He was a disappointment in Buffalo. He was a disappointment in Jacksonville. Rode the coattails of Aaron Rodgers. He was not meant to be a head coach.
Yeah, I mean, and numbers don't lie.
Numbers don't lie.
So at the end of the day, is you don't even have to paint that kind of a picture, because I mean it is what it is. So with that being said, let's carry on, because there's really not much to be said. I mean, you pretty much said just everything that needed to.
I think we talked more about the game than Al Michaels had in terms of entertainment, actual entertaining aspect of Thursday Night Football. Now, getting into the Sunday games, it's only fair that we start out with the London matchup, and that is going to be the New Jersey Giants going on and taking on Green Bay. And according to FanDuel, the Green Bay Packers are a 8-point favorite in this matchup. Now, the way that I do it on this show is that I base it off of the spread. If you want to do it straight up, you can go right ahead, but I let everybody know ahead of time. That's how I make my picks. So, Renaissance man, who do you have win this game in London? You have the Giants and the Packers.
Well, it seems how Aaron Rodgers, we just got done talking about that guy. He's been cheese. That's what it is, and the Giants are about to make him Swiss cheese. I got the Giants.
And you know what? I am going to go with the Green Bay Packers. Give me the -8. I could actually see in this be a 2-touchdown game, because the New York Giants have unfortunately now just made them a one-dimensional offense. With Daniel Jones being injured, with Tyrod Taylor being injured, it is going to be run with Saquon, run with Saquon, run with Saquon. So
and why not that? And why not? Because I don't think that run defense of Green Bay can stop them.
But when you're one-dimensional, it's hard to win a game. It is very difficult to win a football game with a
when you can't
offense.
run the ball. When you can't run the ball, it's hard to win a game. I don't think it's so much as being one-dimensional, because let's face it, football is a game that is won in the trenches. And if you can't, especially on the offensive side, if you can't push those D linemen back, you got a problem, because now you either push them back or they're going to live in the backfield. And we see it time and time again. So Green Bay has proven to me they really can't stop the run. Yeah, they are 3-1 because they have a one Aaron Rodgers. and he seems to play pretty good when he wants to. But I just don't see it happening for Green Bay. Not this week anyway. I think they go to 3-2.
So I'm gonna say Green Bay Packers -8. I will have the Packers going 4-1. Unfortunately, my wish of having them be 0-17 is not going to happen yet. Unfortunately, now continuing with the conversation, and I will point out that the spread for this game is so massive, but yet I also think it is not enough. The Buffalo Bills, according to FanDuel, are a 14-point favorite against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yep.
Now, Pittsburgh Steelers, you have Kenny Pickett making his first official start for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then they're going to be going into Buffalo and taking on Josh Allen. So, Renaissance man, who do you have winning this game? Pittsburgh Steelers or Buffalo Bills?
Come on, that's easy. It's Buffalo Bills. I mean, the Bills are 5th in offense, 13th in defense, and they're 3rd in passing. And according to NFL.com, looks like Pittsburgh is 30th in offense.
Terrible.
They're 27th in defense. I mean, that says enough right there. That should.
Now, normally when there's
Pittsburgh has nothing coming on Buffalo, period. Nothing.
Normally when there's a 14-point spread, I normally will take the plus 14. But considering it's Pittsburgh and considering how bad Pittsburgh has been, give me the Buffalo -14. This could be a 28-point blowout for all I care. To me, the Buffalo Bills are going to annihilate, going to destroy. They are going to decimate the Pittsburgh Steelers. So give me the Buffalo Bills. Give me -14. Going to be an absolute blowout.
I got a question for you. So, speaking of the Pittsburgh Steelers, you think it's Mike Tomlin's time to be out? You think it's possible that the Rooneys are maybe considering a coaching change? Which, let's face it, the Rooneys have owned the Steelers since the Steelers have been in Pittsburgh. So, do you think? And they don't. And the one trend that they have is they don't necessarily, hire and fire a lot of coaches. They generally stick with one. I mean, there was, from my era, there's Chuck Noll, and then Bill Cowher, and now Mike Tomlin. They've been to three coaches in about a good 20 years. So
to answer your question, Renaissance man, do I believe that Mike Tomlin will be on his way out? I'm going to answer your question by asking this question. Is there a better head coach available on the market? If there was a better head coach that the Pittsburgh Steelers could go out and get, then I would understand the logic as to why. But considering that Mike Tomlin has been not only one of the most consistent, but also one of the most reliable head coaches in the NFL, unless you can find someone better, the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to keep Mike Tomlin. I've said for the longest time that Mike Tomlin is a top 5 head coach in the NFL. He is one of the most durable, one of the most dependable head coaches you have in the NFL. And you don't just fire a head coach unless you know that you have somebody better on the opposite side. So if they don't, Mike Tomlin will stay. If they can find a better head coach somehow, then they will fire him. So it just really depends on who's available.
That makes sense. All right. I just had to ask that because I think we're looking at, the decline of, just wins and losses, and I can't really compare him to Don Shula, but I'm going to try because right now I think that looking at just the overall picture of it, the game is passing by and it happens, but the good news is that Mike Tomlin is still a fairly young man.
Well, I mean, also the thing is with Mike Tomlin being a defensive-minded coach, so many defensive-minded guys are being hired in the NFL right now. So many defensive-minded head coaches are becoming the pattern now. So even if Mike Tomlin got fired, he would be hired within a month and a half. Actually, heck, he probably would get hired within a week of being fired from Pittsburgh. Because Mike Tomlin not only is a 2-time Super Bowl champion, he is a top 5 head coach in the NFL. He's defensive minded and, in my opinion, one of the smartest head coaches in the NFL you have today. So I will say Mike Tomlin, unless you can find someone better, keep him in Pittsburgh. Because if I remember a statistic I read somewhere, Renaissance Man, Mike Tomlin has had no losing record in Pittsburgh. There has not been one season where he was below 500, and he has been there for almost 17 seasons. So that is an insane number to really consider, and that's why he will not be fired from Pittsburgh.
Okay, understood. Go ahead.
Now, I was going to say the next matchup, as we're doing our NFL Week 5 picks here on the Sports Angle on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. I'm your host, Ian Rakelli. We're here at the Renaissance Man from No Filter Productions. And the next matchup, you have the LA Chargers, Justin Herbert, who we talked about earlier in the show. And they're going to go down to Cleveland, going down to the dog pound, and they're going to be going against the Cleveland Browns. Now, according to FanDuel, the Los Angeles Chargers are a 1.5-point favorite. So who do you have win this matchup, Chargers or Browns?
Chargers.
That's it?
You hear me? Nope. Chargers. I mean, there's a lot going on with the Browns right now. Who's going to have one this year?
I think what he's talking about is that we were talking about Mike Tomlin. We were talking about the Steelers and everything that was going on. And I was saying that he never had a record below 500. He's saying that he's going to have one this year, saying the Steelers
sure
will
will.
500.
Sure will. Agreed.
And by the way, shout out to Thomas, by the way, one of the most loyal supporters, one of the most loyal followers of the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio. Got to give a shout out to you, Thomas. You always are supporting the show. And Renaissance Man, we are going to disagree once again. Give me the +1.5. This game is in Cleveland. I mean, this game is in Cleveland. It's in the dog pound. They're going to have the home field advantage, and you're going to have Nick freaking Chubb destroying the backfield. And they have the best offensive line in the NFL out there in Cleveland. So give me the Cleveland Browns. Give me the +1.5 in this matchup. I will go with Cleveland.
You know what? Cleveland's got one problem. They don't necessarily have an identity. When they get one, I think they would be dangerous. But right now, it's just up in the air on that.
Hold on, define
as
identity.
Good I'm sorry?
Define identity. Because I think they do have one.
What, an identity to choke in crucial moments?
No, their identity is ground and pound. Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb. I mean, they run the ball, twice as much as normally every other team does. I mean, the Cleveland Browns are all about running it down your throat.
Yeah, but they're still young. And I'd say give them a couple years, but they're there though. I think they're there. They're just not all the way there. They'll get all the way. They will, and we got to win big games. That's just it. This is one of them for Cleveland. Yeah, I mean, that's great. It's going to be in Cleveland and all, but I mean, who cares? I personally thought that they turned the corner a couple of years ago. That good playoff Cleveland team.
You mean when they took on Pittsburgh and absolutely annihilated them?
Right. I thought they turned the corner then, but I was wrong. So with that, it's kind of like they're trying to find themselves again. See?
We'll see what happens, but yeah, I mean, Cleveland, when they win this game, they will be above 500 without Deshaun Watson. Yeah, try saying that before the season started.
I don't know if he would even make it any better.
You know what? I ain't gonna go there. I know that you're the Ohio guy, but I ain't gonna go there.
Yeah, I don't even think he would have made it any better. So I mean, Deshaun Watson is a great quarterback, but he too has a problem of putting his. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Hey, Thomas, shout out to your Phillies, by the way. I am a supporter of the Philadelphia Phillies, two of my closest friends. are Philadelphia Phillies fans, so I do pay attention to them when the Cubs are not in the playoffs like they are this year. So yeah, definitely go Phillies. Boo. Yeah, woohoo. Now, so getting to the next matchup, considering I am a Chicago Bears fan, I might as well just open up the whiskey and get it done and over with. You have the Chicago Bears going to Minnesota, taking on the Minnesota Vikings. Now, FanDuel has the Minnesota Vikings as a 7.5-point favorite, and Minnesota carrying off the momentum of that win in London against New Orleans. The Bears losing against the New Jersey Giants last week. So, Renaissance man, who do you have in this matchup? You're going to go with my good old Chicago Bears, or are you going to go with the gritty king, Justin Jefferson, and the Minnesota Vikings?
Sure, I'm going to go with the Bears. I just think they're all out better than the Minnesota Vikings, and I'm still not sold on Kirk Cousins either. Still, hey, he just for some strange reason, I'm just not sold. I mean, he had this problem when he was in Washington too. He has a problem winning big games, and this is one of them because now we're talking about a division rivalry here.
Now, call me a pessimistic.
Mhm.
Consider me a traitor. Consider me not an actual fan, but I am all in on the $141 million rebuild next offseason. Have me on board for all the money the Chicago Bears are going to be spending next offseason. Hopefully, Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus actually know what they're doing. So, considering I am all in for next offseason, give me the Minnesota Vikings. Give me the gritty king, Justin Jefferson. Give me the game manager, Kirk Cousins. I will take the Minnesota Vikings. Give me the 7.5. I could easily see this being a 2-touchdown game, considering the fact that the Chicago Bears have one of the worst offenses I've seen, even though they have a great defense. So they're the opposite of your Detroit Lions, by the way. Detroit has a great offense and a terrible defense. The Bears have a terrible
that's
offense.
A whole nother conversation.
Hold on.
Okay.
The Bears, however, are the opposite of Detroit. They have a terrible offense, but a great
But they're sixth in defense. And that's
right.
what I was
They have a
going to
great
say.
defense.
Yeah, they're sixth in the league in defense. So that's what I was going to say. Not so fast, my friend.
Right. They got a great defense. They got terrible.
That right there is why they're going to win the game.
All right, give me the Vikings. Give me 7.5.
Because Chicago is able to generate turnovers, and they're able to generate points off those turnovers.
Yeah,
they
I will give
lead
credit
in that category. That's why they're gonna win that game in Minnesota.
Look, I'll give a shout out to Eddie Jackson, Jalen Johnson, Brisker, the rookie from Penn State. Yes, they have a great defense, but man, that offense, I saw it last week. That when all you can do is run the ball and maybe do short 10-yard passes to your tight end, you're really not going to win the game, unfortunately. So,
yeah, right.
Speaking of your team, I was trying to segue this in the nicest way possible.
Yeah, I get it. Go ahead.
Right now, according to FanDuel, the Patriots are a 3.5-point favorite. Going to be playing in Foxborough. So who do you have? Are you going to go with your Detroit Lions or are you going to go with New England? Who you got?
You know what? I'm going to go with New England to win. And here's why. Because New England is really just having some luck right now. And it's okay. They got a young quarterback in Mac Jones. And although Detroit's offense looks stellar, they're not going to be able to fix that defense overnight. The defense is horrible. They're horrid. Even and yes, Anthony Lynn, the defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, should have been fired. Well, last game. I mean, you don't commit penalties. Your defense doesn't average 7 penalties for 95 yards a game and expect to win games. It's a very undisciplined defense. The play calling is atrocious. He just does not have his defense ready to play. And Coach Dan Campbell, love the guy. He's the reason why you would even want to root for Detroit in the first place. But right now, I think he's risking his career by not taking the play calling duties away from Anthony Lynn.
So
I'm not saying fire him. I'm just saying take him away from because it's not working.
the thing is, when it comes to the Lions defense, I think with it being so young, that could be a reason why. I mean, I think like 7 or 8 of their starters are either a rookie, sophomore. They're under the age of 25, if I remember correctly. So you
Yeah,
have a
but
lot of young players on their defense.
great, great. But when you can't come up with one stop, I mean, they've got no pressures on the quarterback right now. As it is, they rank last in the league at that. They rank last in the league at batted balls. They rank last in the league at almost every defensive statistical category known to mankind. This is why they are 1-3.
Well, you know what?
This is why they just flat out suck. And now it's another cycle where a coach is gonna have to get fired. But you don't fire him right now. You fire him at the end of the season, but not right now.
Well, you know what's going to happen?
Play calling duties from him.
You know what's going to happen? There is going to be a team that is going to go 1-4. Okay, there is going to be a team that's going to go 1-4,
and it's going to be the Detroit Lions.
But I'm going to tell you who it's going to be, Renaissance Man. I'm going to tell you who's going to go 1-4, and that's going to be the Bailey Zappi, Bill Belichick-led New England Patriots. Give me the Detroit Lions. Give me the 3.5, the plus 3.5 for Detroit. I say that your Detroit Lions, they're going to win this game.
Oh yeah, plus they don't have a field goal kicker. Let's get into that one. Plus they don't have a decent kicker. There's that.
You did sign Michael Bagley.
That's not going to help anything.
Sign Michael Bagley though. Hopefully that'll fix your situation by getting Michael Bagley. Now, with New England, I don't trust New England. Bailey Zappi's a rookie. You have to factor that in. And secondly, this Patriots team cannot produce offense. This is a Patriots offense that looks absolutely terrible. I'm not going to say trash, but they look terrible out there in New England. So you're going to have a number one offense going up against probably one of the worst offenses in the NFL right now. And then you got a guy in Jared Goff who really has turned his career around in Detroit.
I agree.
One of the most underappreciated and one of the most disrespected quarterbacks in the NFL.
Well, that's because, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because while Anthony Glenn was there in Detroit, he got fired last year. This is why Detroit's offense is now number one in the league.
Yeah, Darrell Bevell, the Seattle guy.
Because here's why. Because now they have designed a playbook that allows him to make plays and go downfield, and let him trust his arm. And let him be able to lead and run the offense. This is why those years in St. Louis / LA, this is why he was so successful there. It's because that playbook was all opened up to him and he was able to make things happen.
And consider the weapons real quick. I mean, I know DeAndre Swift's going to be out. But Jamal Williams, you have Amon-Ra St. Brown.
They've stepped up. I mean, they're still Jamal Williams is still rushing 100 yards a game, which we all know that hasn't happened in Detroit in God knows when, since Barry Sanders, I want to say.
I think it was
Reggie
Kerryon Johnson, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he was the last 100-yard rusher, but that was a few years ago. So that just tells you that this offense they're winning the game in the trenches on offense. On defense, not so much.
Aiden Hutchinson needs to not get injured, by the way. The guy who really should have gone number one overall if politics hadn't gotten involved. I mean, we all know the story on why Aiden Hutchinson didn't get drafted by Jacksonville. I mean, right? The reason why he didn't get drafted by Jacksonville?
Because of Urban Meyer.
But no, because Trent Baalke didn't want to draft a Harbaugh guy. The general manager for Jacksonville didn't want to draft a Jim Harbaugh player. So instead, he drafted Tracy Walker over Aiden Hutchinson. It was really unfortunate.
Well, they do have the better record, so there's that.
Well, they do have the better record, but here's the thing. Aiden Hutchinson, in my opinion, was the best player to come out of the draft. It was him and Ahmad Gardner. To me, those were the top two. It was Gardner and Hutchinson.
And right now they're even working with Aiden Hutchinson because after those 3 sacks, he still hasn't had one. I'm like, I tell the sports writers, the Detroit sports writers, all the time. You know, I'm like, listen, guys, he's only been in the NFL for 4 games. 4. Give it a minute. If you want good food, you gotta let it cook.
Yeah, you got to season it a little bit.
Yeah, you gotta season it. And you gotta let it cook. You gotta take your time. He's got to be able to take his time to develop and learn the different blocking schemes of
Yeah.
all different offensive linemen around. He's got to do a better job scouting. And I think, because they have not decided to ever blitz the quarterback, and I'm kind of like, when, it's high time is. I mean, think about this for just a second when you talk about losing franchises like the Detroit Lions. How in the hell do you score 45 points and still lose? How do you
Because
score
you're
45
Detroit.
points in a football game and you still lose?
Because you're Detroit, Renaissance man.
Yes, it's
That's how you
only in
do it. Because
Detroit.
you're Detroit.
Yes. Oh, that's why I don't pick them against the Patriots. It's
I,
because
I so
the Detroit Lions since 1957 have found a way to lose games, and especially in unconventional ways. I mean, really.
So if you go on our Twitter, Renaissance Man, at Sports Angle on PR, once again, if you go on our Twitter, at Sports Angle on PR, I actually put out a tweet. I was responding to somebody, and they were saying, who do you think's going to have the number 1 pick in the upcoming draft? And I said, knowing their luck, the Detroit Lions will have the number 1 rated offense and
Yes.
somehow find a way to have the number
Well,
1
they will
pick.
find a way to fuck it up. Excuse me. They will find a way to screw everything up. And, well, here we are.
It's live, folks. Anything can happen.
Imagine that they do it year in and year out. I mean, there's no coincidence. I mean, they've been doing this since 1957. They have been doing this ever since Night Train Lane. They won in the 1956 NFL championship, and then the next year, William Clay Ford buys the Detroit Lions. And Night Train Lane said this. Okay, so he says there will never be a championship won in the Detroit Lions or this organization as long as the Fords own it. Well, here it is, 2022. And there has not been any kind of championship.
So let me ask this. Let me ask you this. So talking about the Detroit Lions here on the Sports Angle on PRConnectionsRadio.com. Now, Amon-Ra St. Brown, I believe that he
Very
has
good
the
player.
talent. I believe he has the talent to be a future top 5 wide receiver in the league.
Yeah.
I really do. I think he could be a Cooper Kupp. I think he could be a Devontae Adams, a game changer, a playmaker at wide receiver. You agree?
Sure, absolutely. He's going to be top 5. But hell, we won't really be able to recognize it as much if the defense can't get the other offense off the field.
Well, I mean, how many years was Calvin Johnson the best wide receiver in the NFL? How many years was it again?
His whole career. If you, I mean, come on, who breaks Jerry Rice's record?
And it still goes below 500. My bad. Like that year, I think you won 5 games, and he broke Jerry Rice's record. So,
all right.
Now, getting back, and by the way, T.J. Hawkinson, one of the best tight ends in the NFL. If you're a fantasy football fan,
listen. Jared Goff has weapons. That whole team, that whole offensive unit is a weapon, and if they can somehow, through I'd say prayer, or even Jesus Christ coming down and playing defense for them, they got to get that defense together, or else they won't win games. And we'll be right back where we started. Now the fans are going to talk about fire Dan Campbell, and it's with whatever kind of record, it's going to be justifiable.
Now moving on to the next matchup, you have a team. You have actually one team that's at 500, a team that most people thought was going to have the number 1 overall pick, and that is the Seattle Seahawks. And they're going to be going down to New Orleans to the Caesars Superdome and taking on the New Orleans Saints, who lost in a crushing double doink in London against Minnesota. So FanDuel right now, they have New Orleans at a 5.5-point favorite. So, Renaissance man, who do you have win this game? Are you going to go with New Orleans? You're going to trust Andy Dalton? Or are you going to go with Seattle? And are you going to go with a guy who has been impressing the entire league, and that is Geno Smith?
No, Geno Smith, I'm not surprised about Geno Smith. It's just the fact that other than DK Metcalf, he doesn't have any kind of weapons.
I
He
think
needs,
Rashad Penny would disagree.
that great. Didn't disagree. But right, it's showing. I mean, it's showing up on the record. I mean, okay, so they're 2-2. But he doesn't have any bona fide weapons. And they're gonna have to find another weapon within that offense to continue to have what little success they are having right now. Okay. As for the Saints, it's another one of those teams that right now is pretty much well discombobulated, especially after the whole Peyton thing. And they have to find some sort of new identity because they don't have what they had. And they're still kind of living in the whole 2005 championship and Katrina. And, they've been so close, just like the Green Bay Slackers and Sharon Rogers. We know, just like them, they get there and it's just like, where did they just disappear? So, I think they'll be a good team. They're a bit of ways away, and it's just a reconstruction. So, with that being said, you're gonna have to give me Seattle, but that's the only reason why, because it's one of the more obvious choices, and I know that I talked about it and I've drug it on.
Now, since my family lives in Seattle, since my family has ties to Washington, it would be the obvious pick. It would be the simple pick. For me to pick the Seattle Seahawks, to pick the guy who leads the NFL in completion percentage right now, pick Geno Smith, and just move on.
Sure.
However, this is the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio, Renaissance man. It can never be simple. It can never be easy. It can never be obvious. So give me the red rifle. Give me the guy who has moved from former team to team, a guy who was a Chicago Bear at one point. Give me Andy Dalton. Give me the Saints at 5.5. I could see this being whoever scores the last touchdown wins this game. So give me the New Orleans Saints. Give me 5.5 at the Caesars Superdome out there in New Orleans.
Fair enough.
This next matchup, it should have been a lot better. Should have been more fascinating. And if there was a certain quarterback who would be playing in this game, it would be a lot better. But unfortunately, he is going to be out because the Miami Dolphins do not care about their quarterback, apparently.
Wow.
So
you actually say you. Hey, I'm shocked, man. You actually would say that?
Hey, what team would have a guy suffer an injury, have him be in the game 4 days later, and have him suffer a terrible injury?
Well, no, I mean, you're right, but I'm just surprised you would just really say that.
Hey, this is a Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio. I say what comes to my mind and say whatever is on my mind. Now,
well, I understand. I mean, I totally get it. I couldn't agree with you more. It's just that I didn't expect that.
And of course, everyone keeps bringing up the MLB postseason. Go Phillies on the MLB postseason. I gotta keep bringing that up again. Now,
go Dodgers.
And
I'm sticking with my World Series pick in the LA Dodgers because I think that after getting knocked out of the NLCS a couple times now, I think they're due for another one. And you keep knocking on the door, eventually somebody's going to answer.
You know what? You're being a show off by saying the Dodgers are going to win the World Series. That's a show off move. Now,
well, yes, it is because that's my soon-to-be wife's favorite team, and if I don't say it, then hey,
you do what you got to do.
Exactly.
Do what you got to do. And speaking of doing
I picked them earlier this year, and Mookie Betts and company has not disappointed me. which is why they have won 117 regular season games.
Yep, and the
Carry
team that's
on.
going to get and the
Just
team that's going
saying.
to get Aaron Judge this offseason. Anyway, getting back to what we were talking about, the Miami Dolphins, they're a 3.5-point favorite, brought to you by FanDuel, over the New Jersey Jets. Now you have Zach Wilson, the Cougar Hunter himself. He's going to be going up against Teddy Bridgewater. To me, one of the best backup quarterbacks you could pick in the NFL in Teddy Bridgewater.
He's better than some starters.
He is. He is better than some starters. So let me ask you, Renaissance Man, and everyone watching around the world, who are you going to go with? Are you going to go with Teddy Bridgewater and the Miami Dolphins?
Yes.
Or the Cougar Hunter himself, Zach Wilson and the New Jersey Jets?
You know what? I'm going to go with the Dolphins. But, I mean, it's kind of a close thing for me because I think Zach Wilson. Okay, no, he's not. No, the judge.
He's coming back home.
The judge is telling people all rise right now. Did you see what he said when he said, hey, maybe I should have took steroids like Barry Bonds too. That way I could hit 80 home runs.
The person who made that comment, I already have that bet with you that he's coming back home to the West Side. I already made that bet with you. I'm willing to make that bet with anybody else as well. I have Aaron Judge this offseason returning back home, returning back to California from where he's from. He's from Fresno, California, for crying out loud. Anyway.
Okay, so if he goes there, who's he going to go to?
Dodgers.
Oh.
I have him going to the LA Dodgers and teaming up with Mookie Betts.
I don't think they have it. I don't think they have it in them right now to risk most of their payroll to go ahead and get Aaron Judge. I mean,
they already have $207 million. They had $275 million in payroll.
Okay, great. But Mike Trout is still getting $420 million.
You know what? I will point out
and why would Aaron Judge not demand no less than $500 million to go?
I had this argument, and we'll get back to the Miami, New York thing in a second. Okay. But I've had this conversation with someone very close to me, and I said it really depends on what Aaron Judge cares about. If he cares about length, he will take less annual money over being there for 10, 11, 12 years. If he cares about how many years he will play, he will take less money in terms of annual value. But if he cares about making the most money, he will do what Trevor Bauer did. He'll do what Max Scherzer did. He will take a 3-year deal. He'll take a 4-year deal, but he'll make about $37, $38, $39 million, and he'll become the highest paid player in terms of annual value. So it really just depends on what he cares about.
And it also depends on your perception. But I'll tell you what, I hit 62 home runs. I tied Roger Maris's home run record. Yes, they're going to, we got to come with at least 400. I'm going to need at least 400 million. I can commit to you long term, but I'm going to need 400 million, to go into a big market like the Los Angeles Dodgers, where I know I'm playing with Mookie Betts and I got Clayton Kershaw, out there winning games for us too. And I'm hitting and he's they're doing their thing. Yes, if they did that, then the Dodgers would not just win the World Series, they would become a dynasty.
Well, you can make an argument they pretty much have been a dynasty. I mean, they're going to be winning 2 World Series titles in 3 years, 2020 and 2022. So,
I suppose, but you got to be able to go back to back for me in order for you to somehow be a dynasty.
Well, since we're going to be having this conversation, I would love to point out that the last time anybody won back-to-back titles in Major League Baseball was the New York Yankees, and that was in the late 90s and early 2000s.
That's
it's been
how
that
hard
long since you've had a
repeat. And see, a lot of people don't understand that's how hard it is in baseball because you got 162 games of regular season, plus the playoffs or however many you play that. Of course, it fluctuates in the end, but to be that consistent for so long, and that's a heck of a feat. So it's not an easy thing to do. It's probably one of the hardest things to do in sports is to be repeat World Series champions.
And somebody actually did ask me one time, like, what do I have Aaron Judge getting? Like, what do I think the number could be and everything? 400. And I said, and I did say that I think that he will actually be around 290 to 300 million, because I think that Aaron Judge will take less length, but he'll take more money.
All right. I mean, that all remains to be seen. Hey, folks, we're just hypothetically speaking. Right now, there are no reports, and why would
No.
there be of Aaron Judge leaving New York?
There you go. But you know what? This is the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio. This is what we do. Now, back to the actual conversation. I'm taking Miami. I trust Teddy Bridgewater. To me, he's
Me
really
too.
been a really solid quarterback
Me
in the
too.
NFL. So give me
I, I
Teddy
like I like
Bridgewater.
I like the direction Zach Wilson is going, especially with the New York Jets. He's really something that they can build off of. But right now, they might beat a couple of good teams later on in the year, but not right at this point.
Yeah,
They're
so
they're all they're almost there. No, just
give me
not quite yet.
Miami. Give me Miami to go 4-1 on the year,
I agree
and
with you.
I'll
And
go with
and
Miami.
do you think so? If Miami goes 4-1, just saying, and Teddy Bridgewater, looks as good as he generally does, do you think they would start questioning the whole return of Tua? I mean, it would. Just think about it. I think the perception would be a little different.
It really depends on the feel-good story of Tua, because you got to remember the first 4 weeks, he was a feel-good story. I mean, he was putting up solid numbers. He was top 5 in the NFL. People really thought that he was going to have this team, at least for this season and maybe onward for the future. Granted, I have Lamar Jackson going back home. That's a completely different discussion for another time. Now,
Okay.
it all really depends on if he is the future in Miami or not. I don't believe he is. I don't believe that Miami has invested long-term stability in Tua. But if for some reason,
I don't think so either.
so
Because there's just question marks around whether or not he can stay healthy, and why. And I mean, this is an unfortunate thing for him. Yes, the Miami Dolphins, they should be sued of some sort. There should be some sort of accountability for allowing what happened to Tua happen.
absolutely, I
But
totally agree.
that all remains to be seen. That's all politics. I'm not going to get into that. But I will say that if Teddy Bridgewater does as good as we think with those same weapons they gave Tua, does that change the conversation? That's kind of my biggest question.
Well, I mean, if you want my overall angle here on the sports angle, I actually would like Teddy Bridgewater for the long-term future. Don't
Okay.
rush Tua coming back. Wait for him to be ready and then put him back in. But in the meanwhile, take your time, have Teddy Bridgewater come in. And let's say the Miami Dolphins are, let's say they're going to be 8-2 heading into week 10.
Okay.
If they're around that mark, then I would be very confident in bringing him back. But I would not rush Tua. I would not force him to come back too early. You have Teddy Bridgewater. You have a reliable, one of the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL today. I would trust that in Miami. Now, continuing the conversation, doing NFL Week 5 picks here on the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio. I'm your host, Ian Kelly. We're here at the Renaissance Man from No Filter Productions. And this is a NFC South matchup. You have the Atlanta Falcons led by the flying Hawaiian Marcus Mariota, and he's going to be going down to Tampa Bay, taking on the greatest of all time in Tom Brady. Now, FanDuel has the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as a 10-point favorite in this matchup. It's being played in Tampa. So, Renaissance Man, who do you have win this game? Who you got?
Oh, I got the Falcons. Now that's another feel good story for Marcus Mariota.
Oh,
Of
Marcus
course.
Mariota,
And I
absolutely.
think I think with the whole, Tom Brady and Giselle, talking about divorce and everything, that word's been throwing around. I think, Tom Brady, it looks like he's really starting to reevaluate his decision to come back and play football. With all that, and he's got all that, so I honestly think it's high time for us to see the Atlanta Falcons, and both both Matt Ryan, he's in Indianapolis now, and Marcus Mariota. They have another change of scenery. And change of scenery, it looks like it's doing pretty decent for both quarterbacks. So I got Atlanta on this one.
Now,
They look a little more prolific with
with
Mariota
it
in the
being a
background
plus
or
10,
backfield. Excuse me.
with it being a 10-point spread, this one I'm going to consider a trap, and I'm going to explain why. Because of how mediocre and how average Tampa Bay has looked this year, they do not look like the NFC South champions they were last year. Don't look like the Super Bowl champions from 2020. Tampa Bay does not look as dominant as it was in the past 2 seasons with Tom Brady at quarterback. The offense looks kind of sluggish. Defense does not look as dominant and really does not look as effective as it once did. And with it being a 10-point spread, it really leads me to believe that this could be a 1-touchdown game. So give me Atlanta, give me the plus 10 on this one. And you know what? If Atlanta does win this game, that's great. If they lose by a touchdown, that would be fantastic for me as well. So give me Atlanta, give me the plus 10. It's just way too high. The spread is just way too big for me. And you know what? I'll put it out here. Marcus Mariota, since we are in the sports entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada, Marcus Mariota spent 2 seasons as the Raiders' backup quarterback. I saw what he could do here in Las Vegas. He's matured. He's grown as a quarterback. So the Atlanta Falcons, if they're above 500 heading into week 5, what a good feel-good story for Atlanta.
Yep. And I think they got enough to pull this one out.
And it'll definitely be interesting. I think the winner of this matchup, if I remember correctly, will be first place in the NFC South. So that has a lot of implications there.
Sure.
Now, on the Sports Angles Twitter, at Sports Angle on PR, I asked a question to our audience: who will win this Week 5 matchup between Tennessee Titans and Washington Commanders? And the Washington Commanders, they won the poll question on our Twitter. The audience believes the Washington Commanders will win this matchup in Landover, Maryland. But Renaissance Man, do you agree with our audience? Are you going to go with Carson Wentz and the Washington Commanders, or are you going to go with the Tennessee Titans and the King Henry-led rushing attack?
The Washington Commanders. I mean, it's just that simple for me. I just think the Commanders are a better team.
In what category? Like, in what way?
Well, I mean, Tennessee to me is just not impressive on defense. Washington, they do need to get that game. They do need to get their offense going. And I think it's high time for Carson Wentz to, just come back out of his shell, kind of like he did, years past in Philadelphia. And he will. I mean, it's a trend with him. Let's face it.
So for Tennessee versus Washington, I'm going to label this game as what it is. It is going to be a game where you're going to have 2 veteran quarterbacks and their air replacement right behind him on the depth chart. Carson Wentz is going to be replaced by Sam Howell at some point this year, and Ryan Tannehill will be replaced by Malik Willis at some point this year. Give me Tennessee. Give me Tennessee at -1.5. This could be a field goal game for all I care. But I have Tennessee. I think that they will be able to pull this out and be the only team above 500 heading from that division. Because, to me, Washington, I don't see why anybody would care about this team moving forward. Heck, even their graphics department doesn't even care about them, putting the actual state of Washington in the background of that W instead of Washington, D.C. Really shows you how lack of awareness they have. So, give me the Tennessee Titans. Give me them -1.5. And yeah, Sam Howell, Malik Willis, 2 rookie quarterbacks. Expect them to be in at one point during the season. So the next matchup, we have a AFC South versus AFC South matchup. You have the winless Houston Texans, and they're going to be going down to Jacksonville to take on the Trevor Lawrence-led Jacksonville Jaguars. And Jacksonville right now, according to FanDuel, is a 7-point favorite. Renaissance man, who do you got win this game and why?
Is that even a question? I
I
mean,
asked it.
really, is that I mean, the obvious pick here would be Jacksonville, just due to the fact that the Trevor Lawrence factor. They're a much better team than they were last year. They've well improved. Trevor Lawrence has got a weapon or two, and they can make some things happen.
Now, I will agree that I do have Jacksonville winning it. Give me them -7 because I could see it being a touchdown game. I expect them to cover that matchup. So, yeah, Jacksonville will be a feel-good story. I do still have them winning that division at 7-10. Somehow they're going to win that division while being 2 games below 500. I just see it happening somehow. So, give me Jacksonville in this matchup. And we've gotten past the hour mark here on the Sports Angle on prconnectionsradio.com. Second hour right now as we speak. So you have the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Carolina Panthers. Now, San Francisco, 6.5-point favorite. You got Baker Mayfield. You got Jimmy Garoppolo, 2 teams that really have a quarterback that's kind of questionable right now. A quarterback that really has a lot of missing quotations when it comes to their resume. So, Renaissance man, who do you have win this game? You go with Jimmy Garoppolo and San Francisco, or Baker Mayfield and Carolina?
Jimmy Garoppolo. They're finding out that Baker Mayfield was a huge mistake. I'm not a big fan of Baker Mayfield. I haven't been a fan of his, even when he was at Oklahoma. I just think it didn't have it in him, and we kind of all hyped him up to be what we thought he would be, and nah. How does the late great Dennis Green, Coach Green says, they were who we thought they were. And he is. He is what we thought. He is what he thought I was. Or you get it. Listen, he's Baker Mayfield is terrible, and he better hope that he's nowhere bagging groceries in the next couple years.
I mean, he'll be a backup quarterback somewhere in the league. I mean, we've seen with number 1 quarterbacks, it takes a lot, and I mean a lot, for a number 1 overall pick to be completely out of the sport entirely. So I say Baker Mayfield, once he's gone from Carolina, he will probably move on to be a backup someplace else. He'll be a journeyman, and that's essentially what he will be. Now, I do have San Francisco winning this. However, Renaissance man, I have what I call lock of the week. Last week, I had Buffalo winning by a field goal. Sure enough, Buffalo won by exactly a field goal because I know what I'm talking about. So, give me the San Francisco 49ers, my lock of the week. They are 6.5-point favorite. My lock of the week is that San Francisco will win by a touchdown in this game. It will be a 7-point difference in this matchup. So give me San Francisco, my lock of the week.
All right.
Now we got 4 matchups left that we're going to talk about, and we have to unfortunately talk about the Dallas Cowboys. Unfortunately, I wish we could just skip it, but we have to. So you have the Dallas Cowboys. They're going to SoFi Stadium. They're going to Los Angeles, talking about the Los Angeles Rams, the Super Bowl defending champions, Los Angeles Rams. Now, FanDuel has the Rams as a 5.5-point favorite. Renaissance man, are you going to go with the Super Bowl champions? You're going to go with the feel-good story of Cooper Rush, who is undefeated.
Yep, I'm going to go with the feel-good story of Cooper Rush. Bye, Dak Prescott. You're a bum. Get out of here. I've been saying that on the record for so long, and I'm going to continue to say it. Dak Prescott is trash. He is, as the Spanish say, basura. And then had the nerve to demand all of that money from Jerry Jones.
My coworker at work, he would absolutely love to jump on this show right now because he would argue with you for about 45 minutes on why Dak Prescott is better than Cooper Rush.
There's nothing to argue about. Dak Prescott is not a winner.
You know what? One day
clicked
I'll
on it.
bring him on. One day I'll bring my coworker on. He'll argue with you for a half hour, 45 minutes easily as why Dak Prescott's better than Cooper Rush. Now,
I don't know
I
why.
will
Here's what makes Cooper Rush better.
go ahead.
He's 5-0. 5-0 as a starting quarterback. That's what makes Cooper Rush better.
Well, you know what? Let me give you a
Dak
spoiler.
Prescott is not a winner, period.
Now, hold on, Renaissance Man. Let me give you a spoiler. This isn't a prediction. It's a spoiler. I want you to write this down. You are going to have a L in the column for Cooper Rush. His first loss as a starting quarterback in the NFL. Give me the Super Bowl champion. Give me the defending champions. Give me the Los Angeles Rams. They will win this game. And also give me the 5.5 as well. Because you know what? The Rams will win by a touchdown. It'll be a late game thing. The Cooper Kupp right down the middle. He will score the touchdown for the Los Angeles Rams. So I have the LA Rams beating the Dallas Cowboys. Cooper Rush, first loss of your career. And it will be Dak Prescott returning next week as your quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. Once again, it's not a spoiler. It's not a prediction. It's a spoiler.
Yes, sure, right. Dak Prescott is trash, and him getting injured was probably the best thing that could have happened to the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, period. Especially that since Zeke is playing back up to form now. I'm talking about Ezekiel Elliott. He's back. He's back to rushing back up to form. He's looking like his old self. And that defense is looking a lot better. The weakest link on the Cowboys was Dak Prescott, and he's been that. It's time to ship him out of there.
Well, everybody knows the biggest weakness for Dallas is Jerry Jones and his massive ego. Now,
well, all right, I get that. Okay, that's staying corrected.
Heading into the next matchup here on the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio, continuing with the NFC East, you have the Philadelphia Eagles, the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles. They're a 5.5-point favorite. They're going to Glendale, Arizona to face off against the Cardinals. So, Renaissance Man, do you have the Eagles going 5-0, or do you have Arizona handing them their first L?
Nope, I've got the Eagles going. I've got the Eagles going 4-0 or 5-0. But I think the Cardinals are on another team that's on the right track, especially with the way Kyler Murray has been playing. I think they're on the right track. I think they have something going in Arizona. I'm gonna give them a couple more years until they're a solid playoff team.
I respect Kyler Murray. I like his talent. To me, he is one of the most talented quarterbacks in the NFL. But it's Jalen Hurts time. It is Hurts time. It is Philadelphia time. I have the Eagles going 5-0. And that's right. I have the Philadelphia Eagles. They're going to be 5-0. Give me the Eagles at 5.5 out there in Arizona. And you know what? I think it's going to be a while until we see Philadelphia receiving their first L, because you'll see their schedule, and there actually is a lot of favorable matchups for the Eagles. So give me Philadelphia 5-0. Give me the franchise quarterback, Jalen Hurts, in this matchup. Now, the next game, the Sunday Night Football, you have the Cincinnati Bengals. They're going to be going down to Baltimore, and you're going to take on Lamar Jackson. Lamar. So the Ravens, 3.5-point favorite, according to FanDuel. So Renaissance Man, who do you have win this game? Do you go Joe Burrow? Do you go with Lamar Jackson? Who do you got?
Nope. I'm going with Lamar Jackson. Joe Burrow will be lucky if he does not get hurt this season behind that pathetic offensive line that they can't block a stop sign.
Okay.
And that's just it. That's what's going to make them lose the game right there alone.
You know what? They can't block a stop sign. You know what? I'm going to steal that from you. I'm going to use that next time. That's a good one. Now, I do agree that Lamar Jackson is going to win this game. I do have Baltimore. I will even take the 3.5 here. But the one part that I actually am going to disagree on is that Joe Burrow will get injured by the end of the year. I don't see it. I don't think he's going to get injured. I think he'll be in a lot of pain, but I don't think he's going to get injured.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't think he's going to get injured this game, but I mean, it's bound to happen. It's definitely bound to happen. So I think, just sometime this season, it's gonna happen. So, behind that offensive line that cannot protect this guy. So I'm definitely gonna say what you call it. Sorry.
Hey, you know what? It happens. It happens. Now, the Monday Night Football game, since we are in the sports entertainment capital of the world, since we are in Las Vegas, Nevada, we have the Las Vegas Raiders, and they're taking on Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City Chiefs. Now, Kansas City, they're being played at Arrowhead. Yes, Kansas City fans, you keep on getting mad at me. I'm still going to call Arrowhead, gosh dang it. That is what I know it for. I don't care about the new name. So,
Yeah.
Kansas City, 7.5-point favorite being played in Kansas City. So, Renaissance man, are you going to go with Patrick Mahomes? Or are you going to go with the local hometown favorite? You're going to go with the Las Vegas Raiders, sports entertainment capital of the world.
Let's go with the Raiders because all this season, Pat Mahomes, it seems like his luster is wearing off. And it's defenses are starting to really figure him out, and they're starting to actually blitz him a lot more. And he's just not being able to make the plays that he was making. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel about that.
Now, I am from the sports entertainment capital of the world. I am from Las Vegas, Nevada. That's my hometown. This is where I am born and raised pretty much. Now, I have to be the bad guy here because I will take Kansas City. Okay. The only reason why I will take Kansas City is because analytically, the Raiders are not a good team. Statistically, the Raiders are not a great team. And in order to beat Kansas City, you either have to have the most perfect performance of your entire year, or you have to have a team of be able to hit blow for blow with Kansas City. You got to have those jabs. You got to have those strikes. It's what you have to do against Kansas City. You have to equal the amount of damage that Kansas City is going to have on the opposite end. Kansas City and Las Vegas are on completely two different spectrums. Patrick Mahomes, if Travis Kelce is triple covered, he's just going to pass to somebody else who's right down the field. Las Vegas Raiders, Devontae Adams will be triple teamed. It feels like Derek Carr is uncomfortable going to Mac Hollins, going to Darren Waller, going to somebody else when Devontae Adams is triple teamed. So I will give Kansas City. I will take the 7.5. I could see it being a 2-touchdown game, unfortunately. Give me Kansas City in this matchup. And yes, Las Vegas, I picked against the Raiders. I'm a bad guy. I know.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the Raiders, I do have them going 1-4.
Ouch.
The Patriots way, you should have never done it. You should have asked for advice from New York, Detroit, New York. You should have asked for all the advice from all the other teams who tried to be the Patriots and failed. It could have saved you a lot of time.
A whole lot of time. But
speaking of which, is the NFL done with the Patriots way? Is the NFL done with trying to be the Patriots? Or is it going to take Bill Belichick?
I hope so, because it wasn't a Patriots thing. It was a Tom Brady thing in the first place.
Oh, boy. Here we go. Oh, boy. Here we go. We're going to have this argument again.
Nope. That's all I'm going to say about that.
If you don't have Bill Belichick and you don't have his stern discipline in the way he coaches that team, yes, you can have Tom Brady all you want, but you have to have the leadership quality. You have to have the discipline, and you have to have the command. All right. It's like being in the military. It's like, hey, you have your commanding officer. You have the person who's in charge. That's Bill Belichick.
Sure, I know everything works from the top down, but I'm just saying, it's Tom Brady's just the star of the show. We know that it is what it is.
But hopefully it's the end. Hopefully Josh McDaniels, Dave Ziegler, hopefully that is the last time a team tries to become the Patriots. And if the Las Vegas Raiders do move on from Josh McDaniels, even though I've heard rumors of that already 4 weeks in, Hopefully they bring in somebody that actually will know how to take care of the defense and not just have 3 sacks in the first 4 weeks. So that was our NFL Week 5 picks here on the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio, the voice of new media. I'm your host, Ian Rickelli. We're here at the Renaissance Man from No Filter Productions.
Mm-hmm.
So we have about 10 minutes left here on the show. So we're going to go kind of through some rapid fire questions here with the Renaissance Man, getting your opinion, your thoughts on the situation.
All right.
So the first question I have to ask you is, every single week there is that one game that nobody wants to watch. There is that one game that we wished wasn't on our TV screen, but unfortunately it has to be played. Somebody has to win the game. It just is inevitable. Do you think the Carolina Panthers and San Francisco 49ers will be that game that nobody's going to care about?
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, and even, even look at just, there's 2 small market teams. And we're kind of like, 2 small market teams. Neither one of them, in my opinion, are Super Bowl equipped. So that's pretty much, I mean, who cares? To get decent teams, just okay.
It's just like, okay, all right, well, you
Right.
exist, so you might as well.
Right. They
Now,
don't show my Detroit Lions, on TV that often. So hey.
no, but they're going to have the
Thanksgiving.
Denver Broncos on for 4 of the first 5 weeks in prime time. By the way, here's a public service announcement to the NFL. Stop having the Broncos in prime time. Stop it.
Right. Because you can't do that with so many small market teams. Doesn't work. I mean, it's the numbers say that, especially when the NFL ratings they go down for
Stop
that,
putting the
just for that
Broncos on prime
purpose.
time. They've done it 4
Right.
times already. Stop
I
it.
mean, it's stop doing that because John Elway is not the quarterback of the Denver Broncos anymore.
Neither is Peyton Manning. Neither is the GOAT, Brock Osweiler.
Right. Yeah, that's the real GOAT.
Oh yeah, he would leap over defenders, pick off other people. Yeah, it was great. Now, getting to the next question. Do you think the San Francisco 49ers will win the NFC West?
No. Any and the Rams will. I don't think the 49ers have enough.
And I'm actually going to disagree. I think the 49ers at 10-7 will actually win this division. This NFC West, the Rams look hungover. Seattle's done better than expected, but they're not going to be a division winner. And Arizona's
the Rams look
hungover.
I agree with that, but to a certain point. I mean, it's those Super Bowl hangovers. They normally last for about 5 or 6 games. I mean, and think about it. There is one more extra game on the NFL as scheduled, this year and in past recent years. So there's that.
So you're going to go with the LA Rams. I'm going to go with the San Francisco 49ers to win the NFC West. For people watching all around the world, let us know your opinion, your feedback on it down below. Also, for all the people watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and like the video. Definitely show support for the content. We highly appreciate it. Now, getting into the next part of it, your Detroit Lions. We talked about them earlier in the show. And yes, they have that devastating injury to DeAndre Swift. And you know what? I believe they can get it done. But you being a Detroit Lions fan, do you believe they can get it done without DeAndre Swift, who really has been the muscle, really has been the heart of the Lions offense the first 2 weeks?
No, they cannot get it done. Here's why. Because no matter how many, they are the only team I have seen to ever score 45 points in a game and still manage to lose. That's a defensive problem. And their defensive problems are not going to be fixed in one game. You got to play defense. You got to stop the other team from scoring to be able to win the game. They can't do that. They've proven that time and time again this year alone. Not to mention, there's just bad coaching all the way around, because no, Dan Campbell wasn't, at fault the last game. I got it, but he was the game before that. Bad coaching and bad coaching decisions, and with no defense, that is a recipe. That is a recipe for disaster. And yet, I see in about 2 or 3 years, we'll be going on the same thing and the same. That's why I said to you. I mean, if you follow me on Facebook, you'll see you just seen my post that said "Same old Lions," because it is. That's just it. And whether they have DeAndre Swift back or not, it's not really going to change a thing at this point.
Considering they have Jamal Williams, and considering that they have a top 3 offensive line in the NFL, I believe they will get it done. And Jamal Williams, if you're a fantasy owner, he'll probably rack up 100 yards in terms of
Again.
rushing
Oh
yards.
yeah, they've got the weapons. They've got tons of.
So I'm not worried at all. I'm not worried
That
about the
Detroit
running
Lions
game.
offense has got tons of weapons. But what good is shooting it out when you don't have enough bullets? You can't make a stop, especially making stops when you need to. That defense is horrible. They looked as lost now as what they did during the Matt Patricia era. That defense looks as lost as they did then.
You know what? It'd be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see what happens next week against New England. But we have to move on real quick. We'll transition over to the sports entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Mm-hmm. And, the Raiders, they unfortunately are 2 games below 500 right now, had a real rocky start to 2022. How much concern should the Las Vegas Raiders, and more importantly, how much of a concern should Las Vegas, Nevada have right now about the Las Vegas Raiders?
They shouldn't. I think the Raiders are going to be fine. There again, it's early in the season. It's still, we still got a long way to go before the NFL season is over with. I would not panic right now if I were the Raiders just yet. After this game, though, should you lose, then you panic. But I don't think you should need to panic right now.
So on a scale from 1 to 10, I'm going to put it at a 6.
Right.
I will have my panic button at 6. Yes, there is going to be some concern in Las Vegas, considering all the money they spent this offseason, all of the money that Mark Davis did to try to improve a Raiders team who made the playoffs last year. Even though they should have never gotten rid of Rich Buseya, I think getting rid of him was a terrible move. He had the locker room. He had the trust and the confidence of the locker room. And yet you let him go be the special teams coordinator in Green Bay instead of keeping him in Las Vegas. That was a terrible decision. I've been saying it this whole time. Getting rid of Rich Buseya and bringing in Josh McDaniels was a mistake by Las Vegas. So I say a 6 out of 10 on the panic button for Las Vegas, the concern for 2022. And with us having about 5 minutes left, one final question. The Packers and the Giants, they're playing in London. What do you think about the NFL playing in London? Are you for it or are you against it with the NFL playing in London, England?
I mean, if anything, I would look at it from a marketing standpoint. I would look at it as brand awareness because, the World League football tried that, bringing teams from, let's say, the Frankfurt Galaxy and all of that and bringing them, back and forth to America. But guess what? They found out they can't afford that. I mean, although, the NFL probably has as much money as the U.S. government, they're not going to really want to spend that. But hey, we could try doing what the Canadian Football League did way back in a while, where they had the San Antonio Stallions.
The Las Vegas
they
Outlaws.
had
the Las Vegas Outlaws as well.
Right. Where they had those teams in the Canadian Football League. So I think the NFL needs to try to do that, except have a team in Canada like Toronto, Vancouver, maybe. Have a couple of teams there. Montreal be another good city.
What about Mexico City? What about Mexico City? I mean,
Well,
it is
that's
one
the
of the
thing.
biggest,
Do
one of the
you
biggest
do
places.
you really think that there is a market in Mexico City for American football?
I mean, we had about 5 or 6 games over there in the 2000s and 2010s, and they sold out almost every time.
Well, yeah, sure, they sold out, but I mean, is it really? That's a toss up. It's kind of one of those things like where I'm the caddy and they're the golfer, and I'm kind of sitting back and looking like, well, I you just use your judgment on this one because I can't read the green at all myself.
You
I
know
can't
what?
read.
I'm going to say that to me, it's good for the sport considering what the NFL is trying to do. It's very obvious what Roger Goodell has in store. And that's if London ends up working out, Jacksonville, hey, we're shipping you out to London. And then if that works out pretty well and the experiment goes well, we're going to take one of these teams and we're going to put them up in Toronto. I really see that the
To have
NFL
like
is
more of a
really
North
going to,
American or a continental game or so,
yeah,
or
maybe
turn it
take the
into
Houston
like
Texans.
or
Yeah.
turn it into like a better version of the World League football.
Mhm.
Because albeit, I'll tell you what, the World League football was a lot better than let's say the XFL the first time around, the AAF, all of that. Now, they're not the USFL had was promising, and I'm glad that they brought it back because we kind of get to like redo something that was done a while ago.
And the Canadian Football League has really been like the second tier. I mean, it really has
Right.
been
That's
the
what I
top.
mean. Like, I mean, you look at it. Let's take guys like Troy Smith and you know, uh Mr. Johnny Football, Manziel, going all, kind of having washout careers here in the NFL and going to the CFL plans. It's kind of like the minor leagues or the NFL Europe, would for all that.
And then we got about 90 seconds left. So let me ask you one final question.
All right.
When it comes to the NFL having a minor league system, there's actually been discussion about doing that. Would you be in favor of that? Having a minor league?
Sure. I would like to see one of these startup leagues that's coming out become a farm system for the NFL. The USFL, that would be I think that might be a good partnership. And I kind of found the USFL brand football this past season a little interesting.
You know what? I'm going to pitch this out to you, considering the
Uh,
XFL is going to have a Las Vegas team. I
yeah.
think having the XFL being the minor league system for the NFL,
Them too.
I think that would be perfect.
I mean, them too. Why not?
Now we got about 60 seconds
I'm
left.
all for it. Well,
Yeah,
and
we got about 60 seconds left here on the
you're
show.
giving. I think you're just giving some guys enough chance to play. Sorry about that.
There you go. Absolutely. So we got about 60 seconds left. So very quickly, tell everybody where they can find you, any projects you're working on.
Oh yeah. I got some projects going on. Anyway, listen, I'll tell you what. You can Google my name. You can go to the No Filter Facebook page. I've got 4 of them there. You can go to my Instagram. That's Renegade Ren. Check out my YouTube channels. Arenthous Frazier. There's 2 of those. There is the no. There is the there's a hit us up at no filter 88 or infilter 889 at gmail.com. I mean, there's that. I'm still on 95.1 WVXG doing high school football games for the next 2 weeks. We're almost in the playoffs for that. I mean, yeah. So there we go.
And this is the Sports Angle on PR Connections Radio, the voice of new media. I'm your host, Ian Rakelli. Fantastic show, episode 29. Episode 30 will be next week. So until next time, have a great weekend, stay safe, and have a good one.